All right, Anthony Levay joins us in Ohio. You're in Ohio, aren't you?
That's correct, sir.
Good friend of mine. We know each other from the rich, grim boogies. Normally around this time of year, we're skydiving somewhere hot and exotic.
I missed it already.
So, Anthony, you've got your industry, got your business, ALD Systems, and we're talking this morning all about parachutes. Parachutes going back to Leonardo da Vinci, and then the latest one last week with that incredible landing on Mars. I've been watching those images of that parachute deploying every single day. To see a parachute deploy into an alien sky, it's incredible.
It is, absolutely. I've been waiting for this day for years now. We almost had an uplook camera on the last Curiosity rover, but it's the first time it actually got there, and it's just amazing to see.
What happened with Curiosity with not taking a camera? Because I know it's not essential equipment. It's would be good to have, as they call it, isn't it? What happened there?
It was an attempt to add it last minute, and it was just too much stress and resources for the rest of the spacecraft and the rover. So they just opted to push it out till this next mission. And well, I'm sure glad they added it this time.
Incredible. Where did you watch it? Were you at home? Were you at work when you saw those images come through?
I was here in my office. It was mid-afternoon, so it was a good time to watch it while I was at work.
Well, we're going to come back to Perseverance as we go through this, but I want to go all the way back now and start with you, Anthony, where it started. You started skydiving. That's what we've got in common. We're both skydivers. We're both space geeks. But you started skydiving out of high school, and that led to you working in parachute engineering. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah, I just I started skydiving right out of high school. I had a summer job, and my boss was talking about it. It sounded like a good idea, and it turned out to be a great idea. So it opened me up to joining our big Sky family.
Yeah.
And then after college, it just opened up an opportunity for a company looking for somebody with parachute experience. So it was perfect for me, a test engineer, parachute experience, and work with companies designing and developing parachutes. And I do all the electronics. Our recording sensors, you get a lot of information from opening shocks and descent rates. We use that information to design the parachutes better and make new ones and bigger and better and faster.
So that first job, your first job in engineering in parachutes, what kind of equipment were you working on? What kind of parachutes were you testing?
Well, it was a variety from cargo delivery to actually these Mars missions. This was one of my first missions I worked on was the Curiosity, or the Spirit and Opportunity rovers for Mars exploration.
And incredible that there was the twin rovers, both on opposite sides of the planet, identical in systems. And wow, how they outlived their lifespan. Was it 90 days? You had initial test run off or something?
That's it. They say the warranty was 90 days, and they've gone years.
So parachutes to get down on a planet. Let's talk a bit about that. And the company that you have now, your ALD Systems, you develop a lot of electronics for testing in the opening. Tell us a little bit about how your equipment works, Anthony.
Well, as you might guess, testing in the sky is a little bit different than testing on a workbench. So the electronics I develop are kind of hardened for the extra shock environments of opening shocks and landing. It's really the landing of the parachutes that makes it need a little more robustness of the electronics. So my electronics could, again, do sensing, they get altitudes and they get timing and use that information to deploy parachutes or release one parachute to sequence to another, kind of like a tandem would release a drogue parachute to deploy a main parachute. So just like that, but cargo systems or other specialty systems, spacecraft or just aircraft.
I think I'd been skydiving for maybe 20 years before I realized that what we use as skydivers is a very small part of parachute systems. You would think as a skydiver, because we're so egocentric, that skydiving is the be all and end all of parachutes, but it's not. It's a very small part, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a good part of it. We have our fun steerable ones, but yeah, the applications go far beyond just jumping for fun. So I mentioned the cargo parachutes. It's a lot of ways to get resupply for not just military, but a lot of humanitarian aid. So we need to drop some water and food supplies to people on the ground in a place that might be very difficult to get to by a vehicle. So it's just much more efficient in those cases.
So the parachutes that you were first working on, I mean, that's incredible. I didn't realize that you'd gone straight to your first job was working on the Mars missions. I thought you'd worked on other types of parachutes first, but that must have been absolutely mind-blowing to get yourself in that line of work.
It certainly was. I didn't think it was real at first. I started off on some small jobs. I didn't have a big part in it initially, but they were important parts. And then over the years, you just grow and you get more and more responsibilities. And you do a good job, and they call you back to do it again.
Yeah. Back from those spirit and opportunity, has the technology changed much from what we have now with Perseverance on the parachutes?
On the parachute side, it's a very similar design, the same style, just because there really are very few parachutes that work well supersonically. Yeah. So the same design, it's called a disc gap band. And that's just the way it is. It's a
tell me about that. I don't understand that system. Tell me what the
disc. So it's a disc gap band. It's just like a flat circular parachute up on top.
Yeah.
And then suspension lines, of course, go down towards the rover and the payload. But along the suspension lines, there's a band of material that's separate from that disc, and that's why they call it a disc gap band. And it just tends to work well for supersonic conditions. That band of material helps stabilize the flight.
It's the speed's involved, the speed that it's going, the machine is going before the parachute's deployed, and then the speed of the opening. Less than a second to full inflation.
Absolutely. That's the interesting part about these things. The parachutes, we know they open much more slowly here, and that's because we have a lot more air drag, a lot more atmospheric density. And up there, there's nothing to hold it back. So it just whomps open very quickly, and just nothing to stop it. And of course, the parachute material has to handle all that. And that's part of the testing.
How does that material differ than what we use as skydivers?
It's really not much different. We use nylon. We use some polyester blends, but a lot of it is just the standard nylon that we use. The bigger difference is in the suspension lines and some support ribbing and tapes in there. They're a little bit stronger. Sometimes they're Kevlar. Sometimes it's a Xylon or a nylon blend. And they even are using Technora, just another version of sort of Kevlar-like, similar strength as a Kevlar.
So my girlfriend Lise, an Andy skydiver as well, she said, how do they pack it? Because when it's packed, it's as dense as oak, isn't it? Solid as wood. How do they pack the thing?
Well, think of get a flat tire on your car. You have a jack to lift up the car to make get that extra force.
Yeah.
Well, they use this, but they turn the jack upside down. You use a hydraulic press, and you just jam it into the bag.
Wow.
So you have to put it into a cylinder of sorts to make sure you don't blow out the sides of the bag while you're using that press.
Yeah.
But you just put it in there, and you just cram it in as hard as you can.
Wow. It's incredible. Cheryl Farnan, a friend on Facebook, said, I'm not quite sure which bit she's referring to, but she said it's apparently as strong as steel. How is that possible? I don't know if she's referring to the canopy or the lines, or any idea what it might be?
It's probably the suspension lines is what she's talking about.
Yeah.
You get some Kevlar and you get some of that Technora cords. Certainly by weight, it's strong as steel. Of course, we can't use steel. Next best thing is the soft suspension lines. And if we had the same strength as steel, then that's the perfect thing to use.
So that actual canopy, which deployed a few days ago, had that ever been inflated or not? The actual canopy itself.
Say that again. How is it inflated?
Yeah, had it actually been tested? The one that they used, or had they tested other ones in the run, or?
They build several of the same ones. They do not test the one that's actually going to land up there. That one's virgin. It's the first time it's used is up there. Of course, you don't want to put any wear and tear on it before you use it.
Yeah.
That was jump number one for it. But very similar ones. They're made identically the same. They use the exact same lot of material. And that's what we're talking about when you hear anybody talk about qualifying the parachute. So the same batch of material, you build a parachute, you test that one, and if that works, then it's really good to believe that the other one, the same material and made the same way, is going to work just as well.
Yeah, yeah. Were you there for any of the testing at that big wind tunnel?
Yes, matter of fact, I was out there at NASA Ames, that world's largest wind tunnel, 80 feet by 120 feet. It's the only place we can test this parachute, full-scale parachute, at some loads that would be very similar to what we'd see on Mars. Of course, it's not the same air density and same speeds. We're just much slower, but we get the same force on the parachute, the same load. And that's an incredible experience, going in that wind tunnel and just seeing the facility for the first time. Yeah. It's amazing to be there. But then being a part of the testing is even better. You get to push a button and fire the cannon and shoot that parachute out of the mortar. It's an experience.
Yeah, it must be. And the size of it, I mean, we all see it on TV and we've seen the YouTube videos, but to actually see the thing inflated in front of you, it must be an incredible sight.
Absolutely. It's always great for a photo op. I think you can see even right behind me. Here's one.
Yes.
And the one above that, there's another parachute. Same wind tunnel. That's where that was, and that was the parachute used for the Curiosity rover. It's up there.
Incredible. So run me through the programs that you've been involved in, Anthony. Start off with the Spirit and Opportunity. What came next?
Well, Spirit and Opportunity, those landed in January 2004. Just prior to that, there was a mission basically going the same time. It was through the European Space Agency, Beagle 2. That one, they thought the mission was overall, it was unsuccessful. The lander didn't respond, but they found out, 12 years later that the parachute actually landed successfully. So
I was going to ask you about that, because that is the British one. You know, that's our rover. So the parachute did its job, did it?
Yes, as far as they can tell, they used one of the satellites that's orbiting Mars, and they saw pictures of the lander, and they saw about 2 of its 4 solar panels deployed. So 2 of them failed to deploy, and those 2 that did not deploy blocked the antenna to phone home. So we never got any signals back from it. But it surely looks like the parachute worked and it landed successfully.
Wow, that's interesting, because I followed the story now. That's news to me, so that's really quite comforting to hear that the actual thing got to the ground. And it's just so many little things can go wrong, isn't there? So many things everything's got to work. Thousands of components.
There's so many people involved in these that everybody does their part, and it's so important that everyone does a good job. And it's great when the results turn out with everyone cheering in the control room for that successful touchdown.
Is it 40% of missions to Mars? It's only 40% which have actually succeeded so far. I mean, it's so difficult, not just to get there, but to land safely and get the operations running.
That's right. There's a lot of parts to that mission. It's not just the landing. 40%. It sounds like a pretty good number. I know it's less than half. Yeah. Worldwide, a lot of countries, a lot of missions have tried, and they don't always come out successful, unfortunately.
So you worked on Beagle, you worked on Spirit and Opportunity. What came next for you?
Oh, the next one, there was a Phoenix lander. That one landed near the North Pole of Mars. It had a short life as well, supposed to be 90 days. It lasted about 105, and then it got covered with ice. So not much you can do at that point. But it did a good job. And then after that, there was, most recently, there was Insight. 2018, I believe that one landed.
My name's on that.
Yep, Insight touchdown. And your name's on that one, you said?
Yes, yes.
Oh, very good. Yeah, it's great when people sign up and get their boarding pass for those flights. That's a great little public outreach. I think the Perseverance rover, it had almost 11 million people that signed up for that.
Yes.
And that's a great little thing to have your name up there. And then Curiosity, we mentioned that one a few times. That was 2012. So in total, that's 7 projects that I've had my hand in. Luckily, one small person in a big team of people, but I'm proud to be included.
That's another thing which hit me the other day as well, watching the live feed from JPL and from NASA, and you see the control room, and because of COVID, there's only maybe half a dozen, 20 people in that room, and I was imagining that people watching who are not familiar exactly with what's going on might just think it's those 20 people who are involved in the mission, and it's thousands and thousands of people going back a decade, isn't it, that have been involved in getting Perseverance where it is?
Yes, nearly a decade. It might not reach actually 10 years, but there are thousands of people. There's not just people in the control room, but there's their support people. There's, I would guess, somewhere at least 3,000 plus just working at JPL. And then there's just the hundreds of contractors who develop each and every part. The parachute, for example, was not made by JPL. They hired that out to somebody. And then the deployment system, that's to somebody else, and so on and so on. So yes, tens of thousands in total.
I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit. I think the parachute was made in the UK, in Devon. Now, I'm not 100% sure, and I'm sure somebody will tell us when this airs, but I'm sure I've got a good feeling it was made in the UK.
That one I'm not privy to. I just know the company that made it is based in California, but I don't know the actual location of the stitching.
We'll find out.
I'm
sure we'll find out once this is out there for people to see. So ALD Systems, do you do any work at all with sport parachutes, Anthony, or not?
Oh, not so much. I do a lot with just every other type of parachute. However, companies that need to test their sport parachutes could very well use my products.
Right.
So test them the same. You still have to measure the information, opening shocks, landing, and I have some control devices that also work for any type of deployments for any parachute system.
Mm-hmm. We're at an interesting time in space right now. It feels like everything's coming at once. We're waited with bated breath. On recording today, Saturday, where SN10 has had its static fire 2 days ago. It looks like that's going to go for its next test, maybe Tuesday. And with that system of the propulsive rocket landings, it almost feels like there's two sides of landings now. You've got your propulsive rockets and you've got your parachutes. Where do you think that's going to go? How do you think that's going to move forward?
Well, as we get bigger and heavier spacecraft, we absolutely need those rockets to land. The parachutes just become much too large to land those things. So we need that. And it's great that SpaceX and these companies are doing that type of propulsive landing. That's the future, certainly.
Yeah. Do you think we're kind of at the limit now with Perseverance? Because that was it 100 kilograms heavier than Curiosity?
Yeah, that sounds about right. A little bit heavier. But with both of them, Curiosity and Perseverance, the parachute did not actually land the rover. It just slowed it down enough. And then we use the rockets for the rest of the descent and landing.
Okay. And even with the parachute deployed, the thing is still traveling through the Martian atmosphere faster than what we can fly head down. It's still going 200 miles an hour, whizzing through.
Very true. Very true. Yes, we slow it down a bit, but we're in about 1% of the Earth's atmosphere at that point. So it's you're moving quickly. Yeah. That would be like trying to fly your parachute here at 100,000 feet.
Yes.
It's not going to slow you down too much, just a little.
And before the parachute deploys, the actual spacecraft will maneuver itself into the right position before the parachute's out. On last week with the landing, you were saying it's flying like a skydiving tracking.
That's exactly right. So they've improved their landing positions and their landing points over the years tremendously by new techniques. So as you just mentioned, just like a skydiver would track off at the end of a jump, the spacecraft does this too. So when it enters the atmosphere, it wants to be nice and symmetrical to fall straight in. Then they eject a couple masses on one side to make it offset, and then it puts the spacecraft at a bit of an angle, just like you will when you track away. And it can steer a little bit left, a little bit right, as it's looking where its cameras are trying to have it go. And at that point, it can eject the rest of the masses when it realizes, hey, I'm in a good spot. And then it goes back to straight in, just like we would stop tracking before we deploy our parachute. and then it deploys its parachute. So it gets a pinpoint landing just by that little extra steering in the atmosphere before the parachute comes out.
How is the deployment?
Landing gets with the rockets.
Is it an explosive parachute deployment? Is it like a Cypress system that we would use, or is it something totally different?
Well, it is controlled by the onboard flight computer, but it most certainly is pyrotechnic. So there's a very large explosive in the back of a tube, and that's the exciting part about this. We get to test that in the wind tunnel. Yeah. So I was actually the guy that installed that explosives inside the wind tunnel before it was exploded here on Earth. But certainly up there, it does the same thing. The onboard computer just sends a signal to it, lights off the fuse, and a large explosion. They call it a gas generator.
Right.
It just creates a bunch of gas behind a piston, and it pushes that parachute back out.
Did you say you loaded that in the tunnel? That was your job?
Yes, that was my job. I did that Curiosity. I did that on some of the previous missions for the wind tunnel testing. So you do a good job, they call you back. I did a safe job. So they said, you're the guy for it. I said, I'll be happy to do it. My pleasure. So I'm up there for about an hour before each test, installing the explosives to a pretty meticulous procedure, and then come down, turn everything on, take the safeties off, and get the wind tunnel up to speed, and then we push the button to go.
Boom. How big's the explosives that you're handling, that you're putting in there?
Oh, it's imagine the size of your hand, and then maybe good 8 inches tall or so. It's like a steel cylinder, and the explosives in that is actually much smaller, but it uses that area to generate the gas, build up the pressure before it releases it into the back of the parachute motor.
Right.
And that's what's used to push that parachute out. Incredible stuff. It is.
It feels like we're witnessing history in the making right now, which of course we are too. To see those images coming back from Mars like we have.
Yes, I look at that website every single day. I want to see what's new. I want to see the greatest and latest. And I don't know if you saw, but they've taken pictures of the parachute sitting on the surface from the orbiting satellites.
Yeah, I saw the image which showed the back shell, the parachute, the jetpack, and there was four and Perseverance as well, taken from the Mars orbiting platform. It's just
so I don't think we know they landed, but it's always good to see the extra pictures, and then one last look. That's it. Parachute did its job. Now, no one's going to collect it. No one's going to repack it. That's the sad part.
It is, isn't it? I mean, one day it will be a monument, and people will visit it as tourists. I'm sure in a few hundred years from now. I wonder if it will just stay exactly. Nobody's going to disturb it or move it. It'll probably have protection built around it.
Right, and the wind is very low pressure up there, so it may never pick it up and move it either.
Just watching that video of the deployment, just seeing a parachute deploy into an alien sky, it almost looked like a blue sky. You could tell there was atmosphere there. I know it's only 1%, but you could tell you were in the sky of an alien planet. It was just, I never thought I would see something like that.
I'm so glad they put those color cameras on. First time they had those color cameras on, and definitely it's a great view of that sky. And if you notice, you could actually see the sun there too. The sun was peeking into the view.
Wow. So what's next for you, Anthony, in work? What you're developing right now, what you're working on?
Well, there's always something on the burners here, at ALD Systems. Right now, we're working a small project with NASA for research and development, developing something we call a textile strain measurement system. It's trying to miniaturize a recorder and a sensor system to measure the actual strain in fabric panels themselves.
Yeah.
So we design parachutes. We have a good idea of what it's supposed to survive, but we have no way to actually test and measure them outside of a wind tunnel. Because as soon as you add something to a parachute, it changes how it opens. It changes the dynamics. So the smaller we can get, right now I happen to have one of the recorders right here in front of me.
Wow.
This is about as small as I can make it. Battery on one side and just all the electronics. So about 4 grams, if you can put hundreds of these on a parachute, with our other sensor system, we can record all information that we think we know about the parachutes, and then compare to what our calculations are, and make sure it's right. Or if it's not, then we can adjust our understanding of the calculations and design better parachutes.
Do you get any feedback from last week from the Perseverance deployment or not? Is there any sensors or readings on that system?
They have a lot of sensors. They record all the information. So again, same as I just described for the system here, we take that information, we use it, what we expected versus what we actually measured, and we can build better parachutes for the next time, or make improvements on the spacecraft as needed. Yeah, I don't have the information this time, but we always shoot for a higher number, expect the worst, and
yeah,
hope for the best.
And what about you personally? When you're next going to be in the sky?
Gosh, I don't know. We've got to get a nice weather day here. It's gonna be in the 40s, but that's still a little bit cold for jumping.
Yeah.
No more snow. I think I might have to push it off another month or two.
Did they have any full-time year-round skydiving centers there in Ohio, or are they all shut in the winter?
They're usually all shut down. I suppose if you really, really wanted to go, you can make an appointment and find an airport that'll take you up. But yeah. We stay inside where it's warmer during the winter.
Yeah, I did plenty of that in the UK, winter skydiving. I'm too old for that now. I'll wait until the weather gets.
Fair weather jumpers we are.
Anthony, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. And I know you've got to go shortly. You've got to get to your workout. But thanks very much for joining us on Air Sports News, my friend. And thanks for that great insight into the magical world of space parachutes.
Pleasure speaking with you, Regan, as always. Thanks for having me.
Take care, bro.